Okay, this is just a real quick video on starter test and replace on a 2005 Chevy Impala 3400. This applies to pretty much all the Impalas, even the newer ones with the 3500, pretty much anything on the GM platform with a similar engine. About 2 weeks ago, this vehicle wouldn't start. I diagnosed as having a bad starter, and I put a new starter on. As you can see right there, brand new starter, and the starter has failed. It is a reman starter though, because they didn't have a new one. So here's the replacement unit right here. All modern vehicles nowadays, for the most part, use a two-wire starter. The older Fords, they used a one-wire starter, but pretty common nowadays. Everything's a two-wire starter. And how it works is this large terminal right here has a cable hooked to it directly from your battery. So there's always 12 volts battery voltage right here to this cable. This smaller one right here comes from your ignition switch, and it's called the S-wire. This is the one that gets the signal from the ignition switch when you turn the key to start the engine. When power is applied to here, it produces an electromagnetic field in here, and it closes the contacts, allowing the battery voltage to flow from here to here and engages the starter. The problem I'm having with this Impala is intermittently, not all the time, I can't duplicate it right now for you guys, but it'll just click real loud, just like a bad starter. And I finally got it to not start long enough earlier today that I was able to test and verify that power was getting to this terminal, and the starter was just faulty. And what I found was, by actually jumping these two terminals right here, which you don't want to do with the key on or the vehicle in drive, because that will engage the starter, and if the key's on, the car will start. By jumping these and a couple times and getting the starter to spin, forcing it to spin, it would then work, for maybe 3 or 4 starts, and then it won't work. So I'm going to pull it out. This is a really easy job to do. I'm going to do it on a lift. You don't have to do it on a lift. You can do it on the floor with a floor jack. It's real simple. There's only 2 bolts, literally 2 bolts, that secure the starter in, and there's a little plastic shield, and then you've got your two nuts on the back side. But real quick here, to take you over to the car, and just to show you, I've got my scope on a rope here, my test light. It's grounded to the battery, and you can see that when I touch the test light to that large terminal, we have power. You see the test light. Now, I can't duplicate the problem. It would have earlier if I would have filmed it outside, but with someone in the car and the test light on this small terminal, you could run power to it, and all the starter would do is click, 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 click. So what I would do is I would take my test light and I would short these 2 terminals out just a couple times, just to spin the starter motor itself, and then if you went inside and you hit the key, the car would start up. So maybe if somebody's got a starter that's doing that, give that a try. Be careful doing it, and don't do it with the key on. It'll do it without the key on, as long as your wire integrity is good here. And then the car would start. But my girlfriend drives it. I don't need her getting stranded somewhere, so we're going to put a new starter on this. So let me get the car up in the air, and we'll get to it. First thing we're going to do, obviously, is unhook the battery cable, right? Because this one's going to be unhooked right here, and this is a heavy cable with a lot of voltage and the capacity to run a lot of amperage through, so we're going to take that off. With the car up in the air, you can get a better look at the starter here. Here's our 2 terminals. This one right here is a 13, this one right here is going to be an 8. I'm just going to disconnect those 2 nuts, take these wires off. Here's one of the starter bolts right here, and the other one you'll see is right there, but it's partially blocked by this little plastic shield. And there is one 10mm bolt right there. You pull that out, and that plastic shield will come out. You'll find that common on all the 3400s. So I'm going to pull that plastic shield off. I'm going to disconnect those 2 terminals right there. We'll take the 2 bolts out. They're 15mm, and we'll get the starter out of here. I'm just using a 10mm socket on an extension. It's a swivel socket to go above the aluminum subframe here to get that out. And then that plastic piece will just come right out of there. Just give it a little twist, it'll come out. And like I said, this is a 5/16 or an 8mm, they're both the same for the small wire. Okay, everything's unhooked. We're going to pull these two bolts out. They're both 15mm. The one closest to the engine is quite a bit longer than the other one. The other one's a short bolt. She's out. Maybe. Almost out. There we go. Look at that. That thing is brand new. 2 weeks old and it failed already. Don't buy a reman starter from Napa. Going back in, it's kind of a puzzle. Once you get it past the oil pan, it'll fall right into place. Okay, I got one bolt started. I'm not going to tighten it up till I get the other bolt started. It's real important to make sure that you don't pinch your wires. Make sure nothing's pinched. I'll just set them in place so they're out of the way. Put the lock washer back on, start the nut by hand as far as we can get it. It's always a good idea too to make sure that your eyelets and your wire ends aren't corroded. If they are. We're back under the car. We're looking at the second new starter. I got the battery cable hooked up. Both of these cables are hooked up, and as you can see, we have power. So let's go turn the key, see what happens. We have a running car. Turn the staticky radio. So basically, just because you have a new part doesn't mean it's a good part. I will admit that starter threw me for a loop, because when the new starter failed, it did the exact same thing the original starter in the car did. It just made that click, 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 click sound, and instinctively I just, it's a starter. It's a bad starter. I tested it, replaced it, figured the car was good to go. 2 weeks later, we're back with the same problem. So sometimes parts are bad. So they warranted that starter. The one I just put on the car, of course, there was no cost. I did lose my labor on it, but it's my car, so I'm okay with that. So if you found this video helpful, give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. I appreciate the support, guys. Thanks for watching.
Alright guys, we have to talk about some that. Yo, what's right over here? No. What?
The gas is just getting down into the street. There's so much
Hey guys, go check out TS channel. They just posted more videos.
They upload how-to mechanic videos too.
Yeah, they do mechanic videos too. Okay, guys, yeah. Alright, let's get that video started. Same place.
I think it's because we take that corner too fast. Yo, this cable needs some zip ties.
Alright, hey, okay. Hold the brake. Hold the brake. hold the brake because it's rolling back. Alright, that's good enough.
You know how to put the chain back on, right?
Yep. Rolling it backwards. Alright, roll it backwards. Wait, nope, wait. Nope, push it forward. That's how I put down chain. Same place. Alright, come on, hurry up.
Don't hurry up, I won't. Did you just spam comments?
Yeah.
Your camera got knocked. Forward's low.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna be uploading tonight. I flew in today. They didn't even know that I was coming.
Have you been walking down?
No, I couldn't upload anything. Because I couldn't do it on anything. Wanna ride this stuff?
What?
Wanna ride this stuff?
That's,
Want to?
I don't care.
Alright, let's go slowly. I know where Shiz is. There for a little bit. That's too bad. What did you say? I know, I tried to get going and get my... Whenever he did do that. I don't know, it's fun.
Jesus, that stopped nearly choked me. Yo, I don't know if your thing is going.
Is it beeping? Like red?
Yeah, it's beeping red.
See you guys in a bit.